Go ahead and get started. Does that sound good to everyone else? Okay, great. Well, so thanks so much for coming, everyone. I've been watching the participants list grow with delight. Welcome to a free webinar and panel discussion that's organized by the Pathways to Promotion Committee of the ASA Statistical Consulting Section. This is advice for the promotion of collaborative statisticians in research and teaching institutions. Can we go to the next? So here's our agenda. We're starting with a brief introduction. Then we'll hear from each speaker individually. After that, we're going to have a little bit of time for an audience poll and then a panel discussion and a Q&A, followed by closing remarks. So we solicited questions from some of you or from all of you ahead of time. And so we have some questions, and then feel free to participate by putting your questions in the chat. Okay, next. And I'm going to turn it over to Todd for this slide.
Yeah, hey everybody, I'm Todd Coffey. I am the 2021 chair of the Statistical Consulting section, and it's also my great pleasure to welcome so many of you today. I told Margaret that we had over 100, I would be absolutely shocked, and we just hit that. We're at 103. So thank you so much for joining. One of our section's major initiatives this year is to help collaborative and consulting statisticians to advance and develop in their career. And so we have a couple groups doing different things, and I'm so grateful to Margaret Stedman at Stanford for leading this Pathways to Promotion group, as well as the dozen other people who are part of that group and are participating today. I just want to put a little plug in for the section. If you're not a member of the section, we've got a lot of different initiatives going on this year. We hope that you'll think about joining the section. You'll see our JSM program. Every year we have topics on consulting and collaboration. We have regular webinars. We're making some changes to our microsite to provide additional resources for you. We've started up some new networking groups. We have a very active message board. We have an awards program. Later this year, you will also see an announcement to publish some of your collaborative work in a special issue of the journal Stat. A lot of things going on. I hope you'll take another look at the section and being involved. But for today's webinar, what I want to say is this is the first fruits of what the Pathways to Promotion group is doing. So you also see a roundtable at JSM that we hope that you'll consider joining, and then additional tools and resources that will be made available in the remainder of this year and perhaps into 2022 as well. So thanks everybody. I'm glad to be part of this. Thanks for all who are participating today, for our speakers, as well as all those who have prepared and planned this.
All right, so just a couple housekeeping things before we get started. You can submit questions at any time during the presentations with the chat feature, but please mute yourself if you're not speaking. And then at the end of the survey, or at the end of the webinar, there's going to be a survey for feedback and comments, and please fill that out. As Todd just said, this is the first thing, and there will be more to come, and that more to come is going to be in response to your feedback. So thank you for that. So today we have three phenomenal speakers. We have Bruce Craig, who's the director of the Statistical Consulting Service and professor in the Department of Statistics at Purdue University. Renee Moore, who is a research associate professor in biostatistics and bioinformatics at Emory University, and then Tina Davenport, who's a senior biostatistician in the Department of Biostatistics and Bioinformatics at the Duke University School of Medicine. And so the three of them have three sort of different but similar career tracks and different jobs. And I think we're going to turn it over to Bruce now to start with you.
All right. So I hope everyone can see. So I'm going to be clearly the first of the three, but in one respect, I was the last to kind of talk about what we were going to discuss. So I'm taking maybe a little different tact than what you'll see in some of the other presentations. What I'm going to do is first just kind of describe a little background about me and then go through some important aspects that I think are helpful towards promotion. Come on, move. There we go. So I say here it's my straight line path because in many ways it's really boring. I went to graduate school and then I went and took a university job and I've been there ever since. But when I first got into graduate school, I really was thinking about just getting a master's and going off and working in industry. My best friends in graduate school were a year behind me, and I had some faculty convincing me to try to go on for a PhD, and so I decided to see if I could get through the qualifying exam, and eventually that led to me getting a PhD. I then didn't know if I was ready for a tenure position or even if I wanted to shoot for some kind of tenure position. And so I sent out applications to more teaching oriented universities, postdocs, as well as universities. And well, it just so happened Purdue was interested in me. I went down and interviewed and it went quite well and they were very interested and they gave me an offer and a deadline before either of the other places that I don't think were as interested in me attending. And so I took Purdue's offer. And partly the reason I took that is because I was very fortuitous in that it was kind of my dream job. I mean, it wasn't planned that I would eventually get involved in the consulting service, but I had spent a lot of time in the consulting service at Wisconsin. And so I wanted to use that and do research, and I enjoyed teaching. And so all of those things kind of fit together. I guess successfully was unsuccessful in running for head one year. And I've been associate head a couple of other times, including now. So this is kind of my path. And there were some, however, I think notable activities that I got involved with early that I really think served as springboards for my involvement in a lot of the activities that I have been involved with over the years. The first was, it just so happened that there was this conference, Research Advances in Agricultural Statistics, their annual meeting that was being hosted by Purdue the year that I arrived. And so I went and attended. A lot of my consulting at Wisconsin had been in the College of Agricultural and Life Sciences. So a lot of my research or collaborators had been associated in the agricultural area. And so I went, met a lot of people. They were really friendly, and it was a very enjoyable, kind of open meeting to be at. And I just decided this is something I want to get involved with. And then another fortuitous thing is the Purdue representative was getting ready to retire. So therefore, I was able to step in and have been kind of associated with this group ever since. Also, right when I was getting ready to go to graduate school, my dad had a quick statistical question, you know how those go. And that resulted in me being a consultant on a national committee. I think 3 or 4 PhD students and 8 or 9 papers, and it's still going. And then 2 things, the last 2 that I have down here are activities that actually my department head suggested, and that was attending a new researchers conference where there I met, you know, other people who were early in their academic career, and it was a great way to meet people, make some friends that are still lasting today. And then also my department head was good friends with the president at ENAR at the time, and put in a good word for me to get me involved in the regional advisory, I guess it's not committee, it's board, RAB, with ENAR. And that led to other activities that I got involved with at ENAR and JSM. So I mention those things because I think I am not the most comfortably, or I can't even speak about it. I don't feel that comfortable in a social scene that often. Once people start talking to me and everything like that, it's fine. But up until that time, I'm not the most comfortable. And so all of these things were ways of getting me out and involved in the statistical community, which I think is very important. All right, so key activities. I mean, some of these are going to be obvious, but I think one thing that's very important for collaborative statisticians is that they go to a place that appreciates their work. Clearly, you can't always control this, but if you are ever looking for jobs, clearly you want to take this into account. I mean, you want to make sure you're going to a place that acknowledges these kinds of joint collaborative papers that you're going to be part of. You'll want to make sure that the department and or college understands the idea of being a co-investor on grants is going to be far more likely than ever being a PI. That it values the role that you play outside of the department, being on MS and PhD committees, and also that their willingness to be an advocate for you around the campus, to speak up on the strengths that a collaborative statistician has, how they could help fellow researchers, and also this idea of not viewing breadth as a weakness, that you're stretched too thin, but rather using breadth as a strength. And so if you are in the interview process, these kinds of things to get an idea of whether the department fits this or not is to ask questions. Always ask questions, speak, and because if you don't, you never know what's going to happen. When you are going forward and then maybe getting an offer and you want to know what exactly will be expected from you, get those written in a letter. Don't expect just wordplay, but get them actually put into the description letter or the offer letter. And then also to kind of help change the environment as you go along, you want to have continued discussions in your annual reviews with the head or mentoring committees, as well as with your fellow colleagues in terms of trying to create either or maintain or strengthen this kind of atmosphere. Along those same lines, it's really important to have quality mentors. Again, you want to have mentors that are going to be advocates for collaborative research. This second one, I didn't really think about when I was first looking around for mentors, but if you're thinking about promotion, it's always really good to have mentors who have had some experience being on promotion committees. When I finally got onto our College of Science committee, which is the step up from the department, I was amazed at what other departments would ask or not understand about a statistician. And it really helps you learn what are the ways that you can sell a statistician to other individuals in other departments, or looking at ways that you can demonstrate the strength in a way that they're a little more comfortable with. You want to have mentors that are honest and give constructive feedback, that their willingness to share the skills they have and knowledge. And they're also, not going to be upset if they say you should do this and then you decide to go in a different direction. These are a shout out to some of the ones that I have I've had over the years. George Mccabe was the former director before me in the consulting service. He just retired, but he's definitely a collaborative statistician. Mary Ellen Bach was my department head the whole time that I went through the promotion process, and was just wonderful. For example, getting me involved in those groups early on and so forth. Um, Rebecca Dorge was 1 year ahead of me, and we went through all the struggles together through the tenure process, and that was really good. And then the NCC 170 committee that I mentioned previous before. There again, you had people in all different stages of promotion, and so you could get a wide variety of advice. One thing I think also that is important is, as you go through the promotion process, is to realize that getting promoted with tenure to an associate professor versus getting promoted from associate professor to full is quite different. And I think, I don't know if it's maybe our upbringing, maybe closer to mathematicians or not, but there's a lot of people I have seen who kind of have this idea: if I just keep publishing in good journals, that's all I need to know. That's all I have to do. Maybe I get some grants to help with that, but as long as I'm publishing, I'm in good shape. And I just gave you here the two definitions for Purdue, because you can see here in the associate, it's talking about having a significant record, and record of accomplishment is publications, grants, and things like that. But when you're getting to full, you can see it's being recognized as an authority, a leader. And those are things that, just publishing doesn't necessarily lead to. Grants, if you think of larger grants or center grants, or if you're consistently getting PI grants, that's great. But when you're going up for full professor, you should look into leadership positions, like as Todd is right now in the statistics community, or in the collaborative area where you're doing a lot of your research. And the other thing is, and I know it's uncomfortable for me, probably for many of us, is to self-promote. Go out and give talks. Talk about your paper and what's so interesting about it, and why people should be using this methodology. Build up that clientele, and that goes a long way to kind of satisfying this next step. Of course, you need organizational and time management skills. Collaborations are built off of, I'm going long, are built off of consulting projects, which are usually simpler, but also take time. So you need to develop a way of balancing your time between collaborations and consulting. You have to learn how to say no. And with the life-work balance, you really have to figure out what's best for you, and think about, things. The glass half full, empty here is this idea that I personally think I'm doing well if I'm not completely satisfied in any area of my life. Maybe that's looking at it from the half empty idea, but I always feel if I'm doing well in some place, then it's probably I'm lacking somewhere else. I don't know how many of you do this, but at Purdue, we were given the responsibility of creating our own promotion packet. This is a wonderful way to start thinking about promotion, where you see yourself going in the future. And you can share that with your mentoring committee or department head and get feedback. And then the other thing you really want to do is make sure you're really pushing forward the importance of collaborative research when you're talking with fellow colleagues and others around the university. Really emphasizing how without collaborative research, there would be poor designs, poor analysis. We help improve the quality of the research at the institution. Collaborative research is also the breeding ground for new methodology that your more methodologically driven colleagues may be involved with. And also make sure if you do work on some methodology that you're submitting both in the subject matter journals, but also the statistics journals. So with that, I will stop. I put my email here in case anyone wants to reach out and ask me other questions that can't be answered here. And that NCC 170 group, we actually created a policy paper back in 2018 that talked about collaborative statisticians, mostly in the area of agriculture. But there is a link at this site also for one that's more in a mathematics department, and I think biostatistics and others have added on. And they have some ideas there that I think you can carry over at your university as well. So I hope I didn't go too far over 2 minutes. That's not bad.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much. All right, and our next speaker is Tina Davenport, since we're going alphabetically by last name. Are you ready? Can you share your screen?
Sure, I wasn't ready, but
oh, sorry.
No, I can be ready.
Okay.
Let me share. All right, can you guys see? Oh, it's probably speaker view.
It is.
There we go. How does that look?
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. So I will be speaking from a non-faculty collaborative biostatistician point of view. So I wanted to start off by describing my own career so far. I started my PhD in 2008, and during that time, I really developed a passion for teaching and mentoring. And this is because I had really strong mentors in graduate school, and I definitely would not be where I am without their guidance. And so I hope one day that I can basically pay it forward and serve as a mentor for somebody else. That's kind of like my lofty career goal, or my goal in life. But anyway, so I finished my PhD in 2013. And at the time, I wasn't interested in like a tenured faculty position because I associated it with like writing grants and finding your own funding and doing all this methodological research. And that really did not appeal to me. So I was really searching for like non-tenured teaching positions. I started 2 simultaneous adjunct positions at 2 different schools, but neither one of them had full-time non-tenure track openings. So I ended up getting a collaborative biostatistician job here at Duke in 2014. And the plan was always that this would be just a temporary position, you know, to earn a little bit of money until I could find a permanent teaching position. But of course, while I was here, I ended up loving collaborative research. But I still love teaching too, and I still love working with students. So my manager, along with the director of the graduate program, they worked it out in our department so that I could teach a master's level course every year. And so while it's not really a promotion, but it did kind of add a title to my email signature. In 2018, I picked up another email signature title when I took on some effort to coordinate some of the education and training initiatives in our bird corps. And then in 2019, I was officially promoted to senior biostatistician. So in this talk, I'm going to kind of talk about my own pathway for my one promotion and things that I've kind of picked up along the way. And so, you know, when asked, like, you know, what do you need for promotion? The first thing that I thought of was that, oh, I'm good at my job. And so, you know, going off of that, then it's like, okay, in all seriousness, there are many ways that someone can be good at their job. And so I just want to talk about some of the 3 skills in particular that I felt like made me good at my job. These were independence, expertise, and leadership. So the directors of our core are developing like a whole entire framework for the promotion process. But for this talk, this is just going to be my super simplistic takeaway when I consider my own path to promotion and what I believe makes me good at my job. So just kind of tips that I picked up along the way. So the first is independence. I think at the beginning of any job, there's some kind of degree of training or support from another individual. Even if you're like at the very top, you know, you're kind of relying on someone to help you navigate your new position. And so in our group, we have an administrative manager, and then every collaboration also has a faculty supervising statistician. And so one biostatistician in our group can has one administrative manager, but then can have multiple faculty supervisors. So when I first started, I had biweekly meetings with my administrative manager. During these check-ins, she would help me like with basic stuff like how to manage my time, or train me on how to juggle multiple projects and estimate deadlines. And she also told me what I would collaborate on. So she found the collaborative groups for me and just basically said, these are the groups that you're going to be working in. With my statistical supervisors, so these are my supervisors within the collaborations, I would have frequent check-ins with them, and they would kind of make sure my analytic plans were appropriate. They would review my code and my results. They would help me interpret my results. I also heavily leaned on them whenever I had conflicts in my collaboration. So if somebody wasn't happy with like a timeline or an analysis, then I would just call on my statistical supervisor and they would basically fight all my battles for me. So gradually I started to rely on my manager and my statistical supervisors less and less. So we started meeting less frequently. From the administrative side, I took on a bigger role in determining my collaboration, so becoming more of a master of my own destiny. From the collaborative side, I would attend the meetings without my faculty supervisor. I didn't need them to check my analytic plans anymore. I still lean heavily on them whenever difficulties arose in my collaborations. So eventually I got to the point where I could find my own collaboration. So if I had a gap in effort, I could fill the gap without my administrative manager's help, you know. So I would come to her and say like, oh, this project, my effort is coming off and I'm gonna pick up this other effort. Is that okay? And she would just say, you know, yeah, that's okay. So with my statistical supervisors, I would kind of check in with them, keep them up to speed on what I was working on. I might like pick their brain to help me talk through a difficult analysis, but that was about it. So, you know, we didn't even really have regular meetings anymore, like one-on-one meetings. And so once I kind of gained that higher level of independence, that's when my manager and I started talking about promotion. The next aspect that I want to talk about is expertise. And this is not just statistical expertise, but also in several areas. So of course in statistics, it's crucial to have expertise in like many common advanced methods. So like longitudinal analysis, survival, feature selection methods, or whatever. So just kind of having at least an idea or a path or an analysis in mind whenever you get a new project. You don't have to be an expert, you know, you may have to go and do a little research, but at least you have like some understanding. But there's also benefit to having superior knowledge in like one or two specific areas. And so in my case, I had several projects and I ended up taking a short course, and that gave me expertise in mediation analysis. So sometimes whenever a core member has a project in mediation, they might reach out to me and, you know, kind of see what I think about it. The second thing is like, we often emphasize that clinicians should have like quantitative literacy to facilitate collaboration, but the same really goes for us too as statisticians. And so it's much easier to help design a study whenever I have like some knowledge of the literature, I know what's been done, I know the gaps, I can help refine aims and hypotheses. You know, I know what the data are going to look like, I know what covariates need to be collected. So all of these things, having this clinical expertise, it just ends up building better, more productive collaborations. And productive collaborations means better research, better funding, and just better everything. And then also there's like regulatory knowledge, especially grantsmanship. So being able to support a PI through the grant submission process, it's really crucial in our field. And I don't just mean like, supporting the analytic plan, but even having some knowledge of the innovation and the approach that can really help support these PIs in their grantsmanship. Also, like I've submitted an IRB through Duke, so I know that process. I can help new investigators navigate that process. So again, it's all about building more efficient collaborations. And then kind of going back to having some specialized knowledge. So it could be like a statistical area, or it could be like a database or a study cohort. So maybe claims data or Medicare data or EHR. So in my case, I did a lot of work with the Jackson Heart study cohort. So whenever someone, had some kind of project within that study cohort, again, I was like the person that people could reach out to as a resource. So once I became that resource or that resident expert in certain areas, then that's kind of another aspect that helped us start talking about promotion. And so the third one is the one I wanted to discuss is leadership. And so this is one that I kind of struggled with because I don't tend to see myself as a leader. I think of leaders as like bold and assertive and commanding, even argumentative, and that is not me at all. But my manager emphasized that I should include this skill, so I Googled it. And so Google Dictionary says, leadership is the action of leading a group of people or organization. Wikipedia says it's a practical skill for influencing or guiding other individuals or teams. So influencing or guiding other individuals. And so I think about a study team in a collaborative setting. We have all these different team members, and my role as the biostatistician on the team is to lead, influence, and guide the research study in terms of the study design, data collection, data management, analyses, and the interpretation of the results. And so that's leadership. So the PIs might be the leader of the study as a whole, but me as the biostatistician, I am the leader when it comes to the quantitative aspects of the study. So that's leadership. This is specific to collaboration, but anytime that you need to lead, influence, or guide, there are plenty of areas for leadership. And so this could be like taking on education initiatives, one thing that I'm doing, or it could be becoming a manager and supervising other statisticians in your group. Or you could perhaps lead diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, or maybe even like recruitment and hiring goals or whatever. So I'm sure like in everybody's work, there is some areas that you could show leadership. So once I realized that I do have leadership skills, then I Googled like simple qualities of a good leader, and I found this short list and just wanted to kind of emphasize a couple of them. So integrity is probably the top quality on my list. It's very, very important to me that my collaborators can trust me. So they can trust that I know what I'm talking about, that I am conducting analyses with integrity, transparency, reproducibility, and they can trust that I'm conscientious. So I'm doing the right thing, and I want to do the right thing. And they also can trust that if I make mistakes, everybody makes mistakes, that I'll be open and honest about it and do whatever I can to correct it, as soon as I can. So trust is a big one. The next one is communication. This includes both written and verbal communication. So having a strong statistical voice, and also being able to explain complex ideas to a lay audience. So you have a room full of highly educated clinicians, and you have to be able to explain these statistical concepts to them in a way that they can understand. They have no training in their area. Another one is influence. So again, I have to be able to convince these highly educated people that my way is the right way that we should be doing things. And then I should have the courage to kind of stand behind my ideas and stand up for myself. So kind of less relying on my supervisors to fight my battles and standing on my own 2 feet. So some qualities of a good leader, once I displayed some of these qualities, and then I showed that I could lead a statistical aspects of a research study, and I showed leadership in other areas in the core, that's when we started talking about promotion. And so I kind of only am speaking about my one promotion because that's the only promotion that I've had. But I know that these 3 skills will be important for future promotions, and they'll manifest in different ways depending on the chosen career path. And so in our group, they're really developing the infrastructure for people to kind of have a wide variety of ways that they could go. So they could go into like a principal biostatistician role, or even maybe a faculty role, possibly. But in any case, some broad examples of showing these 3 skills, it includes, like I mentioned, being an administrative manager or becoming the collaborative supervisor, like the senior statistical supervisor of your collaboration. It could be getting that regional or national recognition that Bruce mentioned in your statistical or clinical area of expertise. And it could also be just taking on bigger leadership roles, like being co-PIs on grants, or even writing your own grants and getting your own funding. And so I just wanted to close with some general advice on promotion. The first one is to keep your career goals ever present and discuss your goals with your manager or supervisor on a regular basis. Make sure you're on track to meet those goals and lay out a plan and a timeline. And when you're laying out your plan and you're thinking about your career path, consider work-life balance. So when my manager and I first started talking about promotion, I don't think I was quite ready, because promotion means new responsibilities and potentially more stress. And, I had a young family at home and I just was less focused on my career. So that's kind of a consideration when you're thinking about promotion and moving forward. As Bruce mentioned, mentorship, I have a team of mentors at Duke, and they've all played a vital role in my continued career success. This is my administrative manager, my statistical supervisors, the director of the graduate program, of course, outside of work, my family, my husband, they're my biggest cheerleaders. So having a support system both inside and outside of work is really important. And then the last thing I want to say is, don't be afraid to ask for what you want. So if you think you're ready and deserving of a promotion, then you should say so. This has always been a struggle for me, but I recently built up enough courage to ask my manager about something that I felt like I deserved for quite some time. And when I did, we had like a really great conversation around it. So even if it's not the right time, or if there's more work that needs to be done, then at least it's on your supervisor's radar and you can kind of work toward whatever that goal is together, and you can put it as part of your plan and your timeline. So that's it. Sorry, I'm also a little bit over, but here's my email address if you guys want to reach out to me.
Thank you so much. Again, that was great. And I feel like I learned a lot again from listening to you. And also thanks for doing a phenomenal job when I 100% called on you out of order. So our next speaker is Renee Moore. And so Renee, if you could start sharing your screen, that would be great. And I will mute myself and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you, Bruce and Tina, for such a great talk, and to the whole committee for inviting me. And so if I can, okay, so I want to share my background as well, because it informs the promotion guidelines I'm going to share as I experience them. Some myths that I've heard or I experienced or I've had mentees experience about promotion, and some tips and some things I wish I knew, and some closing remarks. And so I too, I didn't even start my stopwatch. Let me start. I too will struggle to do 15 minutes, but hopefully come in at 17. All right, so I do have a really diverse background. I started at my undergrad at Bennett College, which is an all-women's, historically Black liberal arts college, and I finished with a bachelor's degree in mathematics and completed the secondary mathematics education program. And through two research experiences, the Mellon Mays undergraduate fellowship, as well as the Harvard program in biostatistics, I walked out saying, I want to be a professor. As you see, the secondary math, I'd always planned to teach, always loved teaching. And so I want to be a professor, and I want to earn a PhD in biostatistics. And I went straight to Emory University, their PhD in biostatistics. And when I got to the dissertation stage, I had this realization that I like developing new statistical methodology, but I don't love it. I love being a collaborative biostatistician. I love being a team scientist. I love teaching. And I said, oh my God, I can't be a professor. That's all I ever wanted to be. And I was sad, y'all. For a few months, I was sad. And I said, all right, Renee, get up, get out of it. Remember, you went to this ENR, Fostering Diversity in Biostatistics workshop. Reach out to that community and see, is your life as a professor really dead? And I found out it's not. And in research one, academia, there are other ways to contribute besides tenure track. And so my first faculty position was at University of Pennsylvania, and I was on what was called the clinician educator track. And a little secret, most biostatisticians you know who are at Penn actually are on CE track. And it was a track that allowed you to determine what your balance in methodology and collaborative was, as well as teaching. And so the way I divided my time, my primary appointment was in the School of Medicine, Department of Biostat and Epidemiology. And I got involved in data coordinating centers for multi-site clinical trials. I also had a secondary appointment in the Center for Weight and Eating Disorders in the Department of Psychiatry. And that wasn't planned. After I interviewed with Biostat, they were like, you want to do obesity research? I was like, yeah, sure. And this will tie into sort of what you heard Tina and Bruce say about what are you an expert in? What is your recognition? Then I said, I miss teaching. I want to learn from those who have dedicated to their careers to teaching and to statistical education. And so I went to NC State in the Department of Statistics, and I was on the teaching track for 3 years. And I taught a 3-3-1. For those not familiar with that lingo, that's 7 courses a year. And I also continued my collaborative obesity research. And after my first semester, I said, I need to be a collaborative biostatistician. I need to teach. And I need all of those to be a balance of what I do. And you know, NC State, I thought about that there. And then there were opportunities to come back to my alma mater, Emory University, and I did. And so I came here on research track in the Department of Biostatistics and Bioinformatics, also as director of the Biostatistics Collaboration Corps. I teach up to 3 classes a year here, do a lot of mentoring, have had the honor at both state and Emory of being a part of the SIBS program, and Emory also RU. So here I've kind of been like 40% teaching and mentoring and 60% collaborative research. And I've also been really involved in ENR and also ASA Committee on Minorities and Statistics. So that's my background that informs the promotion guidelines that I want to share. And so when I got to Penn, I was told to be promoted from assistant to associate professor, you have to demonstrate national recognition. And I said, and then they said, one day when you go from associate to full, you have to have international recognition. I'm like, okay. And in what areas, right? This is academia, you're a professor. So you have to demonstrate this in research, teaching, and service. As a professor, you do all of these things. Now, depending on your institution, your department is what you have to demonstrate in those. At Emory, if you're on research track, you get to choose excellence in 1 or very good in 2 for your promotion package. At Penn, I actually don't remember hearing something like that. I think you had to demonstrate all of these areas somehow. So find out at your institution, is it like an Emory where you can say I'm excellent in 1 and get promoted or very good in 2, or is it like I got to be all good in all 3? And what does that mean? All right, so you may have been like me when I was an assistant professor in 2006, and I was like, all right, I'm a collaborative biostatistician. And why am I that? Because I think it's cool. I'm a Jill of all trades. And like you heard from Tina and Bruce, I also got recommendation that, remember this recognition thing, Renee, you want to show you're an expert in at least one or two areas. And so I encourage everyone to build collaborations in one or two areas. Or Tina just shared, like the Jackson Heart Study. She's an expert in things. So what is your area that people can be like, yeah, I'm going to go to Bruce for that. I'm going to go to Tina for that. I'm going to go to Todd for that. What's your area? For me, those emerged as obesity and clinical trials. Oops, wrong arrow. Then they said, Renee, you also have to have invited talks. Look, I just finished my PhD. I'm a newbie. I'm trying to figure this out. Well, how do I do invited talks? And they're like, talk to your mentors and then network, right? I'm here because I heard Emily said my name. Like Renee might be a good person to give a talk. So thank you, Emily. I have another invited talk on my CV in the honor of talking to you all. But invited talks, again, show recognition. Someone said, hey, I think Renee can talk on this topic. Let's invite her. And, you know, the rest of the committee said, all right, I'm going to trust you, Emily and Christina, on that. We'll invite her, right? So networking, mentors, your areas of expertise, that will get you invited talks. Then, of course, again, research, academia, authorship. And most of us know that if you're the first author, you're recognized, you led it. You're the last author, you're senior. But what I didn't know, and a lot didn't know, as a collaborative biostatistician, second author means a lot. And in places that have more formalized promotion for a collaborative biostatistician, they have, I'm going to use the word, hope no one gets mad at me, they have trained their promotion groups to recognize this is a collaborative biostatistician. They're usually not first, they're usually not last because it's not their content area, but second. So like I said, I do clinical trials, multi-site. So there's 30 authors. And the fact that I was second on that shows that my contribution were valued, right? And so whenever you are contributing in a way that the paper could not have happened without you, that you added to it, advocate for second author. And most clinicians that I worked with, they've been like, okay with that. I only had one, and he said, I'm vain. And so I like to be second or third author because when you do et al, it doesn't land. If you're last author, it doesn't count. And, you know, I kept my mouth shut because that was best, but I reached out to other people in the group and they're like, yeah, you can have second author, Renee. And then I also told them I need some first author, and I'm kind of struggling to do these dissertation papers, and I'm not really doing methodology. And one of my collaborators was like, Renee, I have 5 papers I want to get out this year. You can lead one. And I was like, oh my God. He said, yes, I joking, I don't want to lead it, but no. And so I have a first author, it's sexual functioning and obesity. And again, it's because I was so immersed in this area, I actually could write an intro with my collaborators, right? And I could write about this and lead this. I was part of the study. And also think about, even if in your clinical area, you may be doing new methodology for that area. Tina mentioned mediation analyses. Maybe you're in a clinical area, they don't know what mediation analysis is. And you can write in that journal of that clinical area and talk about how mediation analysis is in cardiovascular health, how that helps cardiovascular studies. So also think about how you can contribute first author in your content area. All right, so teaching. Your teaching requirements depend on, again, your institution and your track. And most of us know about traditional courses, right? But also a lot of times for promotion, your guest lecturers, when you do training sessions, when you do workshops, those also count. Mentoring also usually folds into teaching. And that can be mentoring of other statisticians, but as well as mentoring of those in your collaborative group of trainees, residents, fellows, of junior faculty who are great clinicians, but they haven't done a lot of research. External letters. So in academia, I haven't come across a promotion package that did not need external letters. And a tip that I was told was, keep a list of potential letter writers. And in some places, your chair can formally ask you, who should I reach out to write a letter? But even if they formally can't ask, a lot of places, informally they ask, or that you can submit it to your mentor, or you can submit it to a senior faculty member. And so keep a list. So the reality is there are still more people in tenure track than non-tenure track. And so think about tenure track people who recognize the value. Bruce had this on a slide about where you go, the value of a collaborative biostatistician. Understand as a team scientist, you're not going to be on a lot of first and last author. Your content area, right? Keep track of those. When you go, this is the ASA consulting section, right? And so there are people in this group who know what it means to be a collaborative biostatistician. So keep a list of people that you meet, people that you're referencing as potential external letter writers who understand you and understand your role. All right. The Emory, our clinical research track, the subcommittee of the faculty council, we were also able to advocate and get a guideline that for our research track, we can submit one internal letter. And so who better to write a letter than your main collaborative group who know the value of you. And even if you're at a place where an internal letter doesn't count as your official letter, it's still a really great letter for your appendix. All right. So here are some myths that I think will help talk some more about promotion and what's needed. So the first thing is, they hired me on research track, they hired me on teaching track, so I must have a full standing faculty position. So what do I mean by that? If you are a full standing faculty member, you will have full voting rights. When there are curriculum changes, you vote on curriculum changes. When there's a qualifying exam meeting, even if you're not writing questions or grading them, you come and you help make the decision of who passes, who doesn't. If you're full standing, you have the opportunity to be on any committee. You have the opportunity to teach. You have the opportunity to be a PI on grants, and you're invited to faculty meetings. And so unfortunately, still today, I've come across a lot of folks who went into positions and they realize they're not even invited to the faculty meetings. So let's not even talk about the value, right? And how are they valued for promotion? But so know where you're going, know if you have a full standing faculty position or not. And if you make a decision not to, then at least you know that and you know how you're able to contribute. All right, another myth I've heard is I'm hired as a collaborative biostatistician. They told me I don't have to teach. That's not usually the case in academia. Again, most full standing faculty positions require you to teach. And again, depending on the institution, you may not have to lead a traditional course, but you have to demonstrate some teaching and mentoring. Another myth, I don't need first author papers. I'm a collaborative statistician. And again, when Tina talked about it, independence, and Bruce talked about it, recognition. You do, some places still require some first author papers. And again, make it work. Like think about your collaborative area. And again, like I said, advocate for second author, but know that it's still not formally recognized at many institutions. All right, another myth. I came in on research track. They brought me here. There must be clear promotion guidelines. Wish it were true, but most of the cases, and I see Emily smiling, this is not the case at most places still. Non-tenure track is actually still pretty new as a permanent position. In most places I found there's a legacy of, okay, I'm gonna get in the door on non-tenure track and then I'm gonna move over to tenure track. And now there are a group of us who are making a conscious decision that what I love leads me to be on research track or teaching track, but that wasn't always the case. And we're still fighting a lot of stereotypes. Just want to put that out here too. One of my institutions, a chair, recommended me for a leadership training series, and I was rejected. And my chair said, "Go find out why." And I went to a women dean, and she said, "Oh, we don't let non-tenure track be in leadership training because most of them are women who have kids and they just did it because they can't manage tenure track." So those of you know me know I was appalled, I was angry, but I kept my mouth shut. And I just told her, I don't even have kids. At the time, I didn't even have kids. I said, I don't even have kids. And I walked out the door. But still this sense of this isn't a permanent position and it's a newer position. A lot of places don't have clear promotion guidelines. And when you pull it up, it refers you back to tenure track. So keep that in mind and keep the guidelines that you're working for. Another myth I've heard about is, 80% of my time or 60% of my time is made with my main collaborator group. I'll surely be promoted, right? And so, yeah, like Tina said, you need to do a good job. But if you're in a biostat or a stat department, your main collaborator group is not in your department. So they're not going to vote on your package, and they don't know what's fully required in your department. And even if you are a statistician in like a veterinarian group, I heard somebody introduce himself, or in a collab group, right? They're used to promoting people who are veterinarians, who are clinicians. And so do they understand how you contribute? And so there has to be some education there as well. All right, and then also, again, team science. You have to know how is that valued for promotion under research at your institution. And the places that are ahead of the curve, they get it and they fully recognize it. And the other places, right, you have to write about why second author was important and what that means. You have to clearly write about your unique contributions and how the paper is different or how it reached this high tier journal. And so, yes, we're collaborators because that's what we love, but you have to be able to put that into promotion and write that into promotion beyond your group. All right, another myth is I will have an annual review, or those on a 6-year clock, tenure track, there's this big 3rd year review. And unfortunately, a lot of places for non-tenure track, there is no required annual review. Request it, make it happen, and make it talk about, one, for that recognition. So again, your chair, your mentor, senior faculty know what you're doing, but also so that you have someone else seeing, is what I'm doing in line with promotion. Another myth, promotion clock is the same for tenure track versus non-tenure track. That's not true. I've seen some places where, for example, to move from associate to full, non-tenure track, their requirement is more years than tenure track. Another assumption is non-tenure track will vote on my promotion package. Again, places ahead of the curve, there are non-tenure track people on it. It varies by institution or school or department. But also know that there are less of us. So there are less associate and less full professors on non-tenure track. So even if they're at the table, they're usually outnumbered by tenure track faculty. So make sure tenure track faculty know you and can speak to your contribution. Another myth may be that I will be paid equally. And again, this goes back to your value. We have the ASA salary survey, and I have to say I was sad that actually a new table has popped up about non-tenure track positions. But we do have an ASA salary survey. And if your unique contributions are valued, you will be paid equally. People will listen to you when you say, here's the ASA salary survey, here's 50th percentile, 25th, whatever is in line with your institution, and I should be paid equally. And I can honestly say in all my positions, I have been able to say this. It wasn't rolled out for every position, but I have been able to say this, and they've been able to say, yes, I want 50th or I want 75th, because that's what tenure track people are paid and get it. So don't assume you're going to be paid equally. And I use the word fight for it, but negotiate for it. All right. So some tips, what I wish I knew. I'm going over, Emily, I'm talking fast. All right, offer letter. So make sure your offer letter clearly states your responsibilities and know how does this align with promotion guidelines. Be clear on your percent effort you must bring in. At Penn, whether you're tenure track or non-tenure track, you had to bring in 80% of your salary. At Emory, it's different for tenure track and non-tenure track. Know what you are responsible for. Also, even if you're tenure track, most offer letters are only 3 years. A lot of non-tenure track positions are actually still considered contract. And it's contract 1 to 3 years. And that's the way it is. I can't say, oh, I'm Renee, so you're going to make my contract longer. It doesn't work like that. But what you can ask for is a sentence in your offer letter saying this is a renewable position. And HR will add the jargon to it that says, as long as there's funding, as long as there's this or that, but still having that line added, if you plan for it to be long-term, is some comfort to you that there's an understanding I'm not taking this to be 1 year in and out. All right, what I wish I knew, document everything as soon as it happens. Each of you on here, you're doing a lot, even if you think you aren't. But document it because you're going to need it for all your promotion packages or if a new application. So most of us are good at manuscripts, but keep track of every co-author abstract and poster you're on. Keep track of all the presentations you're on, and keep track of whether it's written versus oral. Some promotion packages ask for that. Is it invited versus contributed? Again, some places for recognition want to make sure you have a certain number invited. And then internal versus external will look different. Again, there's this service component. Keep track of those. If you chaired a session, poster judge, committees, again, internal, external. One thing I'm not so good at is I get teary-eyed when I get these emails and these thank you notes, but maybe because of move, I'm not good at keeping track of them. Keep in touch with formal students. Some teaching packages require you to have letters from formal students. So keep track of everything you've gotten from your students and your students to demonstrate, again, this recognition, this very good or this excellent in teaching. All right, Tina and Bruce touched on this. I cannot say it enough. You need mentoring circles and alliances. You need more than one mentor. You need a circle of mentors and advocates. You should have some in your department and outside your department. You should have non-tenure track and tenure track. You should have a mentor for each area, research, teaching. One good thing at NC State was in our offer letters, they put a research mentor as well as a teaching mentor. Guess what? If those folks haven't been promoted or haven't been promoted on your track, don't understand your track, you also need a promotion mentor. And as others talked about, you want peer mentors, but also make sure you have mentors in ranks higher than you, and a mentor every step of the way. I'm going on to full professor, but I still have my mentors who are senior to me that I reach out to. And then, as you heard, network through professional societies. That's how you build your alliances. That's how you build more mentors. And so all of you have joined this group. And I'll admit here, I've been a paid member, but I haven't been an active member. Sorry, Todd, but I'm going to reach out with Todd and say, get involved. If you're not involved, get involved in something. All right, tips. Bruce said this, go and stay where your unique contributions are valued. I promise you, you are needed. We are needed. There are not enough collaborative biostatisticians in academia. There are not enough who have dedicated our career to digging in with our collaborators and really understanding their research question and helping them design and helping them carry out this study. Do what you're passionate about. It'll show. You'll do your best when you do what you're passionate about. I have some stuff up there, advice that I just ignore. And I'm here as living proof that if you do what you're passionate about, we are valued in our community. And I had the honor of being bestowed as an ASA fellow in 2017 for the things that I said I'm passionate about. And so you are valued, you are needed. And if you're looking for me next year, just want to let you know my passions keep me moving. And next year I'll be at Drexel University, and here will be my titles. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, and congratulations on your new position.
Thank you.
So everyone, if you keep an eye on the chat, we have contact information for the speakers, and we're also going to drop in a link for a short poll. So if you want to take a couple minutes to fill that out. And then are we going to take a short break for that, or do you want to get started with the questions?
So we're going to take a quick break, and I think as people kind of answer the poll, Christina's going to share her screen and we can kind of see the responses quickly before we move into questions.
Great.
Thank you everybody for all the speakers. It was great to hear everybody's different perspectives. I think we can probably share the results now, Christina.
Let me share.
Great, so we have about 39% of people would like to be a mentor and a mentee. That's great. We're just kind of gauging interest because this might be something we're interested in doing, is doing a mentor-mentee program later. So we can move on, Christina. If it's
Sorry, I clicked the wrong thing. Let me just get
okay, that's okay.
technical difficulties. Okay, it's back.
Great. So the mentor-mentee program, so we'll keep that on our list as something to do for this committee. Move on to the next question. External reviewer for faculty promotion. That's great. That we have about 37% and some people that it doesn't apply. So that's something we're also thinking about as our committee as well, trying to figure out templates or maybe some kind of more information for external reviewers. So next question. So about 50% haven't written a letter or doesn't apply, and about 23% have. So that's kind of good information for us to know that a lot of people haven't written letters before. Somehow, so people are interested in kind of more information about writing letters, which is great. And resources, definitely for the portfolio and some case examples. Okay, that's great. That's great to hear. Looking for people, some collaborations and conferences is where you found external reviewers. Great. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, everybody, for responding. Now we're going to get into a few questions. Thank you to everybody that filled out the pre-survey that allowed us to kind of organize the questions. So this is kind of a question for everybody is, let's see, kind of what kind of involvement in the kind of professional societies would you expect to see for a candidate going up for promotion? General committee service or a more leadership role?
I think that sort of matters on what level. I think all of us we're talking as leadership becomes more important. That's where clearly the higher levels, that's where you'd want to start having more of those leadership positions. But definitely getting involved in the community is again an emphasis of potential and future progress, things like that, which are often what you're looking at the associate level.
Anything else to add, Renee or Christine? Tina? Okay. Let's see, we had a question come into the chat that I want to make sure I catch. So for Tina, could you speak to the differences and similarities between being a non-faculty statistician at an academic institution versus a faculty member?
Sure. So first, I'm not a faculty member, so I don't know the ins and outs of that part. But I can say as a staff biostatistician, we don't have like promotion packets. So when I was promoted and in our group, it's more like a discussion with our supervisor. And at least right now, again, they're kind of setting up infrastructure and a process. But for our case, there were specific kind of things for each title. So we have like a bios 2, 3, and a senior biostatistician. And then, so there were like specific, I guess, goals that you should be hitting for that particular title. And as you start hitting these goals and as you start like operating at the next level, that's kind of when we started talking about promotion. So we don't have like authorship requirements. I also generally try to push for second author because I have very few opportunities to be a first author on a manuscript. Usually it's like the PI or the clinician, and they have their clinical mentor. And me as the statistician, I usually kind of take a second or third authorship role. And so I think for me, it's like, it just, I don't know what it's like to be faculty, but on the staff side, it just feels like a lot less pressure. I don't know, that promotion packet kind of intimidates me a little bit, but yeah, I think in general, it's not as structured in terms of promotion. It's more like a conversation with your manager.
Great. Thank you. Let's see. We had a couple more questions talking about, let's see, kind of identifying external reviewers. Does anybody kind of want to talk about, do you have any suggestions for how to kind of identify those as your kind of a collaborative work specifically?
Oh, I think Bruce is on mute.
I missed the first part of that question.
Do you have any...
Sorry, I was reading the chat.
Oh, no, that's okay.
So was I.
Do you have any suggestions on how to identify external reviewers for promotion and tenure? Somebody mentioned they're concerned how collaborative work is viewed by statisticians from traditional academic departments. So each of you kind of touched on that. Renee and Bruce did, but do you have any kind of advice for identifying those external reviewers?
Again, it sort of depends on the level that you're going up for promotion. Our current dean expects like national academy members, really prominent presidents of the ASA or former presidents, things like that, to do letters at the full level. But at the associate level, you want full professors typically reviewing, talking about assistant professors. But if you are a collaborative statistician, I think that you can easily bring in experts from whatever area that you're working in as someone as an outside letter as well.
Yeah, I'll just repeat what I say. Well, I heard peer institutions, most places I've been, that your reviewers have to be from peer institutions. I'm like, what does that mean? But find out how your institution defines peer institutions. And then, like I said, mentor, and if you have a mentor who's not helpful, that's why I said mentoring circle, find another mentor, hang out with your mentors at conferences, right? And just, even though I didn't want to, I'm like, oh gosh, I don't want to go to dinner with these old folks, right? Well, that's how I felt when I was a newbie, right? But I knew I needed to do it. That's how my parents taught me. You respect them, they're giving you opportunity, but it was good, right? Because I met senior people, and I'm like usually the only young person at this table, but then you're like, oh my God, that's such and such. Oh my God, I cited them. And oh my God, that's the president of ENR. And you're just like, and you get to talk with them. So no, for real, hang out with your senior mentors and network them and be in their circles, get people to know you. Like I said, become a part, find one group. I said, I'm just a paid member of ASA Consulting, and that's not because I don't want to do more, but I'm ENR treasurer, and I was ENR diversity workshop, and I was StatFest. And so, there's more things I want to be involved in, I can, but find one that's in your interest area. That's a group of people that you like, and then dig in. And through that, you know, is another way of recognition, another way other people get to know you and you get to know more people.
Great, thank you. So we had a couple of questions come in about portfolios, and a couple of you kind of mentioned this a little bit, but what is something you wish you would have known before going through that process of combining your portfolio and making that kind of packet, pulling everything together a little bit easier?
So like I said, document everything, start today. At least I wasn't good at that. And there were things I thought didn't count, or like, oh yeah, so I'm not gonna put it, but document everything. Also, don't be afraid to ask for other examples. And every time I've asked that, a chair has been able to share with permission other examples. Also, don't think that just because somebody's senior or somebody's on the promotion committee, they won't talk to you. At each institution I found, there is somebody who will sit down with you and go through your packet and help you along the way. So again, that's why I said find that promotion mentor, or that someone who's on the promotion committee or who has been recently promoted. So those would be my tips.
Yeah, I would just add that, you know, it's not just, and I think I said this, or maybe I didn't, but I had it listed. It's not just listing off all your papers or something like that, but it's been said in the comments, you should spend a little time talking about what your contribution was, or the impact of the paper, so that you can go back and reference that later. I'm horrible with keeping up to date with all those things, and it then becomes like a day where I just have to sit down and go back and review everything I've done in the last year. And I keep on saying I'm going to change, but
Yeah,
I haven't done it yet.
and Lynn Eberly wrote it in the chat, what you just said, Bruce, as well. And one thing I didn't say specifically is, along with these promotion packages, there's usually a personal statement. And so that's your story, right? And so also documenting, like Bruce is saying and Lynn is saying, how you contributed, the difference you made. It helps you write your personal story. Why are you unique? What are your unique contributions that merit you being recognized as being promoted?
Great, thank you, everybody. So we had, all of you kind of mentioned kind of getting recognition about your collaborative work. And so there was an interesting question. So do you have any advice for changing the culture of an appointment, promotion, or tenure committee to get them to recognize that value of primarily collaborative work over primarily PI work? Do you have any kind of suggestions on how to kind of start that process if that's not something that's necessarily considered in the committee?
I find that extremely hard.
I know it's a difficult question.
It's the committees I have been on, some have been very open to, and this is at the college level. Some have been very open to collaborations, and we have a great discussion about these people who are up for promotion. And other years, it's been very difficult. And so it in some sense depends on who's on the committee. But I think it would be really helpful to maybe, you know, you had all these things about writing letters and everything. I think it would be helpful for those, I don't know how it's done at all across the country, but at least at Purdue, there's the department head, and then there are two other committee members from each department that are up at this committee level. And I think it would be great if there, and maybe there is, a resource that has good talking points or things to emphasize at that level. You know, you can talk your way through it eventually, but it would be nice to try to make that more efficient.
Yeah, and Lynn writes in the chat, talk to your associate dean for faculty affairs. I mentioned here, and at Emory, the Round School of Public Health, that we formed a clinical research track committee. And so there weren't enough of us in each department, but there were enough across departments. And we got, buy-in from Associate Dean, the chair of the faculty council at the time. And again, we're able to, implement changes. Like I said, internal letter, someone on non-tenure track being on the promotions committee. Now, I'll say it out loud. They didn't let it be a permanent member. They said it had to be at large. So we didn't get our first request, but we still got somebody in the room at the table. And so culture change is slow. We know that, right? Culture change is slow, but you got to start somewhere. And the more you have in numbers and getting senior people involved, you can start to make culture change.
Great, thank you. So we're kind of ending up our time. I wanted to kind of mention, this is a little bit more geared towards Tina. Do you have any considerations for people that have like a master's degree versus a PhD and how they can kind of get promoted? We've talked a lot about PhDs and faculty level positions, but people maybe that are in a more biostatistician role as a master's student.
Yes, I actually think the same three things that I talked about, it applies even at the master's level. And so generally in our group, a master's person will come in as a bios 2. And I think a lot of the time, maybe their statistical supervisor will kind of map out the analytic plan for them, and they just kind of run the analyses. But again, as they start building up their own independence, coming up with their own plans, doing their own analyses and interpreting their own results, like the same kind of process, it applies to them as well, and they can move up. I think it's actually like more clear going from bios 2 to bios 3 in our group than going from like a 3 to a senior. But the same three, like leadership, expertise, and independence, it really applies at the master's level as well.
Thank you.
Agree.
So
And sorry, just to add on to that, sort of to senior folks who are out there, make sure we're advocating for our staff. We know they're so important to the work we do, and things like, Christina Meta's on the line, she's part of promotions, and BCC with me, like we advocated to get a line item for professional development for our master staff. And so a lot of the things that we need to grow, they need to grow too. And so we need to be part of helping them as well to grow so that they can be recognized and be promoted.
Great, thank you. Any last minute kind of comments or pieces of advice before I hand it back to Emily to close us?
This is Lynn at University of Minnesota. One thing that I think is very important is that contract faculty promotion policies have language in it that specifically say the faculty member should be evaluated against the expectations of their contract. Not just a laundry list of expectations, but specifically against what their contract has hired them to do.
Thank you, Lynn.
I do want to add one thing. My aunt used to always tell me the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And it's something that I try and build into my own personality because it's not me. But I think, it applies when you're thinking about your path to promotion, just make your goals known, find a mentor, find whoever, and let your goals and your things be known. And I think that kind of helps.
Are there any other? Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. I think we're ready to kind of close up.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to share my screen really quickly, just and sort of to say, to say thank you to our speakers for coming and for giving such great and thorough advice. And thank you to everyone who came to listen to that advice and to start having this conversation in sort of a broader sense than we've been having it. I think it's been happening a lot of places, but the Pathways to Promotion Committee in the section on statistical consulting is working on sort of having this conversation at a bigger level. So if you're interested in joining, please email Margaret Stedman. She's our chair, and this is her email address. And then these are all of the members who worked on organizing this webinar. And so thanks to every single one of them who's been just incredibly helpful through this process. And thanks everyone for coming. And I don't think we have any more announcements. If you want to stay on for a few minutes and chat with the speakers, feel free, but otherwise have a wonderful evening here on the East Coast and rest of your afternoon, depending on where you are. Thanks so much, everyone.
There's just one last slide, Emily.
Oh, sorry, that's right.
No, that's okay.
For our upcoming events, we have a JSM roundtable, which I'm registered for. I'm really excited about it. It looks great. There's also a bi-monthly networking for statisticians in health. You can email Rob about that. And then there's a Statistics Consulting Center hangout, which is very fun. If you want to come join that, please email Clark, and their email addresses are here as well.
Great. Thank you everyone for coming. I put in the chat a feedback survey, so if you have some time to fill that out, we would greatly appreciate it. And we're recording, and this will be posted somewhere soon. We're still figuring out where exactly to post it, but thank you everyone very much for coming, and we look forward to hopefully see some people at the roundtable. So thank you to the speakers as well. It was a great discussion.
Thank you. You'll want to, if you can, save some of the chat, because there were some good suggestions in there as well.
Yep. Rick is going to save the chat for us as well. So
okay.
That's going to be great.
Yeah, that's already saved.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Have another event again. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Everyone have a wonderful day. I'm going to turn off the meeting now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay.